In the last video, we covered how to make overlays. Now let's talk about building the live stream. First thing we want to do is we obviously want to get OBS and get it installed. I'm assuming at this point that you have that done. Then we want to create our scenes. I like to break my scenes down into our actual scenes that we'll be using during the live stream and or recording. So we got our waiting, our role play, our combat, and our be right back. Then we want to break that down a little bit further, and we want to do our players. I like to add a little breakout scene that specifies, hey, this is where we're at. This is what these are for. We've got our GM cam, and then all of our players. Then we got our assets. Then we got our little assets section. We got one for the background. We got one for the logos, one for the camera, for the camera's overlay, the Foundry, and then Foundry 1 and 2. And then I also add one more section for audio, because audio needs to be done separately. First thing you want to make sure that you're doing is when you're doing your audio, you want to go into your settings. You want to go to your audio settings here and make sure that all of the default audios are disabled, because we want to add these in manually. That's very, very important. Apply, and then we'll click OK. We'll talk about audio in its own separate video. But let's talk about actually building our overlay now. I've grabbed a few, and we're going to talk about how we build out our player overlay. The first thing we want to do, obviously, is we're going to go to our waiting overlay. And the first thing I want to do is I want to add in that background scene. So I want to go find it, background scene, and we want to make sure our source is visible right away. So as you can see, we already got that done. And if I go in and I add my layers scene as well, or if I add my logo scene, which I've got here somewhere, I don't know why this is sorting weird. Got a logo scene, there it is. That'll be right there. I like to have my logos in roughly the same spot, but what's great is I can move this per scene. I don't necessarily need that there. Having these will set it up great. Then let's go to our role play scene. As you can see, I've already gone in and pre-added in all of what our players are going to look like and where they're at. Here I want to go in and I want to add in my camera overlay. Let's grab our camera overlay. And we're going to grab an image. We're going to add a new source, and we're going to create an image. I'm going to call it cam-overlay. Naming your scenes is incredibly important. It's what's going to make everything nice and good. I recommend when you're building out your scenes and you're setting up everything, throw them all in one folder. So for me, I've got them in my D drive. I've got it under OBS, Celestial Edge Stream. And because I'm looking for a frame, specifically, I'm going to grab this frame here. That's going to be okay. Now I've got this, and it'll highlight, and it'll set right in the middle. Now what I can do is I can go to, let's use my GM cam screen here for example. I'm using this image as a background, just as a example, nothing more. And what's cool is I can, over my overlay, I can throw in some names. I can add a text, and I'm going to name it GM-rend. Then I can select and create some text here. I'm going to select my font. I've got a really cool font called Blade Line, I think, that should be in here. Yep, right here. I'm going to use for this one. And I'm going to set the size at, I think 72 is probably perfectly fine. GM renderance. You kind of want that a little bit more legible, so maybe not blade line. I do have another one I've got here. I like glitch. Let's use glitched. Glitch inside, perfect. Cool. And then I can transform my text to uppercase. Make sure it all caps. And I'm going to select my color. Let's make it an orange. And let's give it a gradient, because why not? That kind of cool. And we'll give it a nice outline of white. And then I will just stretch this just enough that it should be legible. All the time. Now check this out. Now you see I've got GM renderings already added. And I've already went ahead and pre-order added all this stuff here. I've got 7 players in my next game. So I want to make sure that I've got plenty of real estate for them. I haven't decided 100% for my layout, but this is the concept still going to apply. I'll probably put a lock logo so it doesn't move it. I'm going to put myself probably like here. Probably about right here. Then I'll add in my little chat bar right in here. Let's add in our audio scene. We're going to add in our audio scene, and the first thing we want to do is we want to select our audio. I'm going to do our audio input capture. I'm going to select the SteelSeries because I want to talk about that in another video, but we'll talk about how cool this is here in a bit. And then we're going to go in once we've got our audio. We're only going to add the audio one to what we actually want it to be added to. So if I want to have my audio scene in this one, and I like to put my audio scenes at the bottom. So see, we're already starting to bring it together with just that, just this little layout.